Hey everyone, so you're wondering where my friend Mike Lindell is? Well, guess what? He was actually creating the My Slipper. It's like walking on clouds, right? Don't forget to use the promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, and you will receive 40% off of your My Slippers. Your whole family's going to love it.
This episode of the Sara Carter Podcast is sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. During this 20th anniversary year of 9/11, help America to never forget. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at t2t.org. T2t.org.
I got to tell you, Tunnels to Towers, I'm so excited to have them be a sponsor of this show and that I can get the word out because they are such a great organization. Helping Gold Star families. Those are people who have lost their loved ones, making the ultimate sacrifice serving our country. Tunnels to Towers actually provides mortgage-free homes to surviving spouses with young children. You guys got to look that up. It's absolutely incredible, all of the charitable work that they do and what they do for our nation. But this show today is just really important because we're going to hit so many subjects. I've got Congressman Brian Babin on the show today from the great state of Texas. He is Dr. Babin. He is on this show. He was with me. Actually, I was with the Codell. He is the co-chair of the Border Caucus here on Capitol Hill, and he is not afraid to ask the tough questions, to hold people accountable, and to tell the truth. And I went out to El Paso, Texas, along with the other congressional members. I think y'all remember Congressman Mike Garcia. He was on our show as well, and somebody who I was able to break some pretty big stories with on Sean Hannity. Congressman Babin as well was on Sean Hannity this week with me, holding accountable the Department of Justice and the White House, which basically stopped he and other congressional members from fulfilling their constitutional duties and oversight duties by keeping them out of the El Paso Intelligence Fusion Center. It is a fusion center where the DEA, FBI, CIA, everybody, every intelligence agency you can imagine joins together and kind of shares information that obviously they did not want these congressional members in, they being the White House, and the Department of Justice. They have kept them away, kept them out, locked them out, built a wall, and we're going to find out why. Because you and I, as Americans, we deserve answers to what is going on at that border, and I'm in 100% agreement. We're both on the same page, Congressman Babin and I, that this flow of immigration, this tsunami, is nothing more than child abuse and abuse of our country. And I'll explain that as you listen to the show. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about, what freedom means, what liberty means. That's what this show is about. It's about you and I fighting, standing up, realizing we are from the greatest nation on earth and we are fighting for our liberty. That's why I have sponsors like Tunnels to Towers. That's why I have sponsors like the Association of Mature American Citizens. That's AMAC. And I talk about AMAC all the time because this is an organization that at this critical time is vigilant and defending our freedom, isn't afraid to fight back. By joining AMAC, you're taking the first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every single benefit that AARP offers. But guess what? Without all the liberal agenda, you don't even have to worry about it. Right now, we're actively fighting against dangerous legislation. It's being pushed in the form of H.R. 1 and H.R. 127. To learn more about these legislations, I want you to visit amac.us. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. So I'm just jumping right into it because I've got this really great interview that you will not want to miss with Congressman Babin. He is going to lay it all out for you, from everything from the border and what he's seen out there with his colleagues to holding the administration accountable. Also, we are talking about some really, really important subjects like China and space and what is happening to our space program and what the Chinese are doing on the moon. You have to listen to this, right? He is the ranking member on the Space Technology Committee in the House. He knows, he has details, he has insight, and he is going to fill us in on his thoughts as well. And some of the conversations he's had with other congressional members about what we are also seeing in space, what we can't explain, what the Pentagon is investigating. That is the unidentified aerial phenomena, or UFOs, as you guys, unidentified flying objects that are in space. I mean, it's incredible. Nobody's joking around anymore. Nobody's laughing at it. This is very serious. These are issues that we have to discuss. We do not want to be caught with our pants down, so to speak, when the aliens show up on planet Earth. But let's talk a little bit about those that did get caught with their pants down, like Dr. Anthony Fauci and people in this administration that were basically shutting down, ostracizing, censoring anyone who questioned COVID-19, right? Where it originated from. Well, we all know it originated in China, but if anyone said, oh, I think the Chinese government was involved in this, or I believe that it came from the Wuhan lab, God help you. God help you. You were canceled. You were thrown off Twitter. You were treated like a conspiracy theorist. You were basically like shunned by the woke crowd and a media that has failed, not just the United States of America, but the world. I believe our mainstream media, the majority of them, are literally failing every part of their duty to inform the American public, to hold people accountable, to hold those investigations, just to investigate. Just even the they don't even want to hold the Chinese accountable. This is crazy. You know, some of them are even lining their pockets with Chinese money. Look into that. Look into that. How they're advertising for China. How they've allowed the Chinese to kind of expand operations and media all across the globe. How we failed on that. But now we're seeing what's happening with the Wuhan lab and all the information that's coming out now. So you remember Fauci just came out and was like all of a sudden admitting just several weeks ago that he can't rule out that the virus didn't leak from the Wuhan lab. I guess that's when some people, at Jack at Twitter decided to bring some people back that he permanently banned under his fascism because he actually works for Joe Biden. I want you to hear this. I thought it was a brilliant question, and it was an even scarier answer. This is Senator Kennedy. He is questioning Dr. Fauci about Xi Jinping. I love the way I love saying that name, by the way. I have no idea if I'm saying that name correctly, but President of China, Xi Jinping. It just flows, right? And the World Health Organization, which is basically the right arm of China. Listen to this.
Can we agree that if you took President Xi Jinping and turned him upside down and shook him, the World Health Organization would fall out of his pocket?
I don't think I can answer that question, sir.
I don't think I can answer that question, sir. It's a really simple question. And I love Senator Kennedy because he just makes it so much fun. Because he's straight up, right? He's not playing games. He's like, I'm sick and tired of you all lying. And basically, the follow-up with Dr. Anthony Fauci, Fauci was stumbling around because he was basically saying that the National Institute of Health really didn't know what was going on with China. They really didn't have a lot of information on what was going on with their doctors and yada, yada, yada. Right? Like a bunch of lies. Of course they know. Of course, the NIH is briefed on what is going on in China. We don't just send money over to China, people. The government doesn't allocate taxpayer dollars and say, oh, you know what? Let's just send China $5 million. We'll just see what happens. I mean, we do have a central intelligence agency, don't we? We do have intelligence agencies in our Department of Defense, like the DIA. We know what's going on in China. We are constantly trying to understand what is going on in China. So when Fauci says that he didn't understand what was happening with the Chinese and what was going on and their intricacies or what was going on at the Wuhan lab, he is lying to you. They couldn't do gain of function here, so they set off overseas to do it there. They do that quite often here in the United States. When something gets suspended here in the U.S. and we're no longer allowed to do it, we find partners overseas that will allow us to continue doing it. From everything from scientific research to, we find ways. We find ways to, whatever else, whatever defense issues we're dealing with at the time. There are ways to do it. And I want you to think about how we've all been lied to. I mean, even when I decided to cover these stories and I was questioning what was going on with China, I mean, I had people in the beginning telling me, you know what? All you can say is stay safe, stay healthy. Don't question anything. Because everybody's going to come after you. The media is going to come after you. They're going to, cancel you. People are going to call you a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy theorist because I want to know what the hell is going on. I'm a conspiracy theorist because I am not totally sold that my daughter, who's a kid, needs to have a vaccine on COVID just yet because she's still a child, right? I mean, and it doesn't seem to be as bad on children. And by the way, my daughter got COVID in December. I had COVID. My husband had COVID. We all did. We, thank God, all recovered just fine. My daughter didn't even feel a thing. She really didn't even have a low-grade fever. She was just tired one day. I'm not saying that kids can't get sick from it. I'm not saying that, children have gotten sick from it. Very few, thank God. But I'm saying we have a right as Americans to question, and we have a right as human beings, by the way, our human rights to question our government and everyone else. Now we discovered 3 researchers from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology became sick enough in November 2019 that they sought hospital care, according to a previously undisclosed U.S. intelligence report that could add weight to the growing calls for a fuller probe on whether the COVID-19 virus may have escaped from the laboratory. That is according to the Wall Street Journal, which was granted the exclusivity of that intelligence report. And remember when they were laughing at President Trump and people were going after him for saying this? China virus, Wuhan virus. It is a Wuhan virus. It is a China virus. And what was going on in China then? Remember how many people were standing up to the Chinese government? Hong Kong? Really convenient. But we don't even hold anyone accountable. We don't even ask questions. We're not supposed to ask anything. Oh, it's a Spanish flu. Yeah. It's the Brazilian variant. Oh, it's a South African variant. But God help you if you call it the China or Wuhan virus. By the way, China has been pushing a lot of propaganda in that direction. They're great, actually. They're phenomenal. Their media is like right in sync with the Chinese Communist Party. And so remember, a lot of times when people start getting canceled and when our U.S. media jumps into the pocket of like the Chinese, it's because the Chinese are playing them. The Chinese know how to do this. The Chinese know how to try to salvage themselves, right? And I'm talking about the Chinese Communist Party, not the Chinese people who have suffered underneath communist China. That's why they're coming to the U.S. That's why when they can escape, they show up here, right? Because we are the beacon of light throughout the world. We are the land of liberty. And that's why people try to come here. So we don't want to lose that. We want to fight for that. I'm only going to play one more clip right here. This is Senator Tom Cotton and Trump over 1 year ago, raising concerns about the Wuhan lab and being slammed by the media. Folks, I know you're listening to me. Hold them accountable. Hold the media accountable for failing you. Listen right now to Senator Tom Cotton.
Evidence suggests that the kind of bat from which this virus jumped to humans wasn't even present there.
But the worst of all, whether it came from the lab or came from the bats it all came from China.
Because we don't know where the novel coronavirus came from yet, the conspiracy theories fill the void.
I'm telling you, the Chi-Coms are trying to weaponize this thing
Conservative talk show host Rush Limbaugh with zero proof, suggesting a Chinese bioweapon lab is to blame.
This question about the Wuhan lab, we know that it's been debunked.
Those same agencies now have been tapped with investigating one of Trump world's most favorite conspiracy theories.
This week, Donald Trump is still pushing the debunked bunkum, despite his own intelligence community's findings that is simply not true.
And there is simply no reason to believe that is the case. There is no empirical evidence to verify that.
Coming up with a conspiracy theory to try and foment xenophobia with respect to the Chinese has just as much factual support as taking Clorox.
He can't just sit back and let the doctors and the scientists do their jobs. He's got to chime in.
He may pick up the conspiracy theory that this was some weapon.
People don't keep bats in captivity. Complete baloney.
We don't need to invoke conspiracy theories.
This is just another example of the president trying to change the narrative from his own failings.
The problem for President Trump is that he's running for re-election, is looking for ways to deflect blame for the performance of the administration.
If you look at the evolution of the virus in bats and what's out there now, it's very, very strongly leaning towards this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated.
So I wanted to ask, are you still confident that it developed naturally?
No, actually, that's the point that I said. No, I'm not convinced about that. I think that we should continue to investigate what went on in China.
Do you hear that? The last two, for those of you that are just listening and not watching this on Rumble or the other place that likes to, basically YouTube, okay, that likes to basically shadow ban as well. That's part of that weird cancel culture. Did you hear those last two? That's Fauci. He's just back and forth liar. He does whatever they tell him to, whatever they, being the government. I don't know, somebody in there. Somebody, Biden, Susan Rice. I mean, it's definitely not Biden. It's probably Susan Rice, right? I mean, this is crazy talk. Hold them accountable because they are lying to you and trying to brainwash you and make you feel like you can't ask the right questions. So before I go any further, I want to talk a little bit about Tunnels to Towers. I'm so grateful. I want to thank Tunnels to Towers for being a sponsor of this show, for believing in freedom, for believing in liberty. And since 9/11, I remember that fateful day. I know a lot of young people out there, you weren't, either you don't remember because you were so young, maybe some of you weren't even born yet. But I remember being there. I remember sitting there in my living room early in the morning. I was in California. My mother, God rest her soul, called me on the phone. And she said, do you have the TV on? And I didn't. She said, you've got to turn the television on. You have to turn it on. And I turned on the television and I watched as one of the towers was burning. And then I watched with my mother as the second plane hit the second tower. And I knew in my heart, I had, grown up in the Middle East. I knew in my heart that this was more than likely a terror attack, more than likely by an extremist group. But I think what was going through my head were all the people, how many people were in that building, in those two towers, how many people were on the airplanes, were there children on the airplanes? My kids were very little then. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. It's what made me who I am today. The reason why I got really and I started later. The reason I got back into journalism, decided I would do this, went overseas to the war, the front lines, was because our nation was attacked. Because people want to take away our freedom and liberty. And that's why a group like Tunnels to Towers, that's why this foundation is so important to me. Because it helps honor those who gave everything. And for 20 years, they've been doing that, since the darkest day in our nation's history. It's 20 years. It's hard to believe. This year, the foundation is actually honoring America's heroes and their families. And guess what they do? They give 120 mortgage-free homes this year. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to give 120 mortgage-free homes this year to families whose loved ones have sacrificed everything. And I know this, we understand how difficult this is, right? for all of the families. I understand this. My husband is a wounded war veteran, and I know what that's like. And I know what it's like when a friend of yours or someone you love loses the person that they love in their life, and then they're left alone. Well, we need groups like Tunnels to Towers. We need people to support Tunnels to Towers. You will make a difference in someone's life. Believe me, from the smallest donation to the $11 a month, whether it's a buck in $1 that y'all have that you can just maybe, donate, or if you have 1,000 because, you're just rich like that. Give it to Tunnels to Towers. Make someone's life better. Make their children's life better. The foundation is bringing Towers of Light to the memorials at the Pentagon and in Shanksville. We don't want to forget about the flight in Pennsylvania that crashed with all of those people on board and the brave men and women that were on that flight in remembrance. That's what they're going to do. They're going to pay tribute to America's fallen heroes. The foundation's CEO, Frank Siller, he is walking literally from the Pentagon to Shanksville. From it's Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and then on to Ground Zero. He really is someone who he's not just doing this. He actually believes this. We actually believe this. His more than 500-mile journey through 6 states in 42 days begins August 1st this year and fittingly finishes on 9/11 right there at Ground Zero. So help America to never forget. Do good and honor America's heroes, guys. Donate $11 a month to Tunnels to Towers at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org. You will make a difference in someone's life. I want to go on because I almost cried there because it's so emotional to me. I mean, I've seen so many people that have given so much, and Congressman Brian Babin, it's so nice to have congressional members that are actually have served in the military, who have children who have served in the military. Congressman Babin's son, Leif Babin, I do know, and Jenna Lee, who was with Fox News, she's amazing, is his daughter-in-law. They live in the great state of Texas. He is just somebody who really continues to fight for his nation on Capitol Hill. His family has given so much. That's what this show's about. It's about the people that keep giving back, no matter how tough it is. He is the congressional member of the 36th District of Texas. He's on the House Committee on Science and Space and Technology. He's the ranking member on the House Subcommittee on Space. I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on, but I won't, because right here, right now is Congressman Babin. Well, I will be back down in Texas next week, so I want everyone out there listening to Congressman Babin and I right now to keep your eye out for Sean Hannity next week, because we have a lot of big breaking stories next week. But right now that I have you here, Congressman, the big story this week was the fact that the delegation that you led to Texas, you are co-chair of our border caucus, the Great Border Caucus on Capitol Hill, with Congressman Andy Biggs from Arizona, the great state of Arizona. And you led a delegation of 12 congressional members to El Paso, Texas, where basically several days before you went on this trip, you were denied access to the El Paso Intelligence Center. And I want everyone to understand the Intelligence Center, and the congressman will go into more details on this, but it basically is a fusion center of some of our top intelligence agencies, the DEA, the FBI, CIA, others involved, others involved in border security there, ICE, Border Patrol. I mean, everybody kind of works together, right, Congressman? This is a center where we are supposed to be sharing information and getting to the bottom of some of the biggest national security issues that we're dealing with there.
There's no question about it. And to be turned down and denied admission when there were actually, I think there were 13 of us, quite frankly, including myself, from 11 different states, all across this great land of ours, and to be denied. We'd been working with them for weeks, and then to be denied, less than 2 days ahead of time that we were not going to be able to come in. We took it all the way up to the White House. We were denied entrance by the White House. And as you said, this is the EPIC, or El Paso Intelligence Center, is the is the Intel Center for Drug Interdiction, for all the intel that's coming in that has to do with our border. And here's the Biden administration told us we couldn't come in because they said they just didn't have the personnel. There wasn't enough time. They gave us some specious excuses. But I will say this, several years ago during the previous administration, we were invited in. I've seen it. It is a wonderful facility. These our DEA agents are doing a fantastic job. I don't know why the Biden administration wouldn't let us in, what the reason is, but all I can do is surmise that the border problems obviously are worse than we know. They don't want the public to see. I don't know what they want to hide. I really can't do anything except say that we had a lot of questions to ask and to get answers to, and we left, having zero answers because we couldn't get in there, and a lot more questions. Let's just put it like that. And with the drug interdictions up the way they are, I'll give you an example. Fentanyl, probably one of the deadliest drugs imaginable coming across our southern border.
I call it a weapon of mass destruction, which is not only me. It's the DEA has called it that. Others have called it that, a weapon of mass destruction, fentanyl.
That's exactly what it is. We lose over 70,000 Americans per year, Sarah, to drug overdoses. Most of those drugs are coming across the southern border. If drugs like fentanyl are up 600%, and we're having the worst crossings in terms of numbers, staggering numbers of illegals coming across, and we were unable to get inside the facility, what are they hiding? That's all I can ask.
Well, it's true. Not only what are they hiding, but your entire purpose. You represent your constituents. You represent what the American people look to you to hold accountable all of our taxpayer dollars. Make sure that it's being spent correctly. Make sure that they're doing their job, making sure that we have the answers. That is your duty. And you can't even do your job. I never heard of such a thing where we've got to set things up in advance for Congress to walk in or go down to the border or go here or go there when we are paying them to do the job. It's our taxpayer dollars. They work for us, and it's your job. You could be able to surprise them. You should be able to go down there any day of the week, knock on the door, on the secure door, hold up your badge, say, I'm Congressman Babin. I want to come in, and they should let you in. And they should let you in. There's nothing going on in there that you should not be aware of. I'm telling you this. If there's something classified, they could put it in a different room right then and there. But you should be able to walk into that office, go into the lobby, and sit down and talk to a supervisor. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And all of us have clearances anyway.
Right.
We ought to be able to hear and see. And quite frankly, we wanted to talk to the FBI. We wanted to talk to DEA agents and all the other agencies and agents that are represented there. Unfortunately, unable to do so.
What were you going to ask them? Because I know a lot of FBI, DEA listen to this show, listen to the Sarah Carter show. I want to ask them because I have a feeling that the Biden administration doesn't want you or anyone else like Mike Garcia or anybody else who was on the trip talking to the boots on the ground without someone from Washington looking up over at them over the desk and making sure they're answering all the questions the way they want them answered. That's my guess. I could be completely wrong, but go ahead.
Well, we wanted to find out, let's get a little intel and basically just to see exactly what the Biden policies are causing and whether that is the etiology or the cause of this horrible influx of drugs now escalating hundreds of percent over what they were under the Trump administration time, and plus is this contributing to the unbelievable numbers of people that are coming across illegally, unaccompanied minors, family units, people from over 120 to 130 different countries, and it's just stunning to hear some of the professionals tell us this is not my first rodeo to come down to the border. I was there, probably a month to 5 weeks ago at the other end of the state in South Texas at the Rio Grande Valley sector. And it was a basket case. We heard so many times that the Trump administration was cruel and inhumane. They were keeping kids in cages. They were ripping. Said ripping children out of the hands of their parents. And we saw things down there like at the Donna facility run by CBP it was a facility that had a maximum capacity of 250 people. 5,700 kids were in this facility. Unbelievable. I got 17 grandkids. I know kids when I see them, and I know when they're not happy. This was child abuse. And where are the Democrats that shed tears and gave these impassioned speeches on the floor of the House of Representatives about how cruel and inhumane the previous generation?
Are you starting to think that those were crocodile tears?
I knew they were at the time, Sarah, but I'm telling you, we could have gotten some good answers because these boots on the ground, the agents, they've never failed us yet. When we go down there, they'll tell us what's going on. They tell us the truth. Now, we'll say this. They usually have a commissar type person from DHS tagging along, and they try to keep us from taking pictures. They when we were in South Texas earlier, they really, you could tell when we went over to see the Fort Bliss facility where they've got nearly 5,000 kids in there. And we could tell that they were absolutely not thrilled to have us there. It was obvious to us. They couldn't answer a lot of questions, or they wouldn't answer simple questions like, what's your budget? How much is this costing the American taxpayer? And they wouldn't. They said something like, well, this is a contract situation. I don't really have that information. I said, and this is an admiral. I said, Admiral, right. You don't know how much this thing is costing the American taxpayer? He's got 700 people working in this facility. And we asked questions about, have you talked to these children about, especially the girls, where they told us the girls were getting pregnancy tested. Are these girls, are they talking about being sexually molested on the way up here? Well, they hadn't been talking to them about this. We asked them about, because they're mixing girls and boys earlier in the facility. They finally got them separated. They don't even have surveillance cameras even around the facility there. I'm not saying. How is
that okay? That is not okay. You are 100% right when you call this policy child abuse. I have said it over and over again, and I think the Republicans need to pound that into the sand every single time you are up on Capitol Hill. Every time you're on television, call it what it is. It's child abuse. I have told people, if you really care about these children, you will not want them trafficked by these monsters. And how is it that we, as American citizens who have these facilities all set up, right, our taxpayer dollars again, how is it that we don't have these answers, that our congressional members that represent us can't get simple answers? And how are we not protecting children from this kind of abuse? Because we know they've been abused. We know they have. We don't even have statistics. We don't have social welfare people. I mean, if you and I would have left our child in a car in front of Walmart, and people say this over and over again, we would not have. Exactly.
We'd go to jail. And I just don't know. We've obviously got constitutional oversight, Article 1 oversight over this facility at Epic that they wouldn't let us in. We have every right to be there. We fund this. We appropriate the funding for this. We authorize this facility, and for them to say, well, this isn't a convenient time for us, when we gave them several weeks notice. And we've got the duty, the mandate by Constitution to oversee this facility. And yet we're being blocked there.
I originally broke that story on the Donna facility. And this is what a whistleblower said about the Donna facility before y'all were able to get in there. And he said the situation at the Donna processing facility has reached a point of critical. It is extremely unsafe and unhealthy for the detainees, agents, and the civilian workforce. The overcrowding is dangerous for the detainees, for the agents, and the children. They said it's inhumane, especially for those maintaining custody, and that it was 86.7% over the stated capacity that was right before you were all able to finally force your way in. somebody had to blow the whistle.
Well,
somebody had to blow the whistle.
You got them to blow the whistle, Sarah, and that's what needs. What we need in this country, and this doesn't just pertain to the border, and you know this, we need truth. We have seen so much obfuscation, obstruction, blocking a deep state trying to keep the truth from coming out. What the American people deserve is the truth. And we didn't see it even from the deep state and the bureaucracy when President Trump was in office, and he had his people in in some of these situations, and now they are absolutely in control, and we don't have a media, and that's why it's so critical that we have people like you that can help get the word out and be a voice for the people.
What is the strategy of the Democrats with the border crisis? I mean, they know what's happening. It's falling apart. It's chaos. So why are they letting it continue?
You know what? It's baffling to a lot of people to think, why would the Democrats want to have open borders? It doesn't make sense. It's destroying our country. It's destroying our treasury. It's destroying our culture. And we bring in terrorists and public health menaces. But the big thing here is people need to remember their grand strategy. The grand strategy of the radical Democrats is to open our borders up, replace the American electorate with an imported electorate. That is the whole theory and the reason they're bringing in hundreds and hundreds of thousands, ultimately millions of people who they immediately put on public assistance and welfare and enfranchise them with the vote. This is what their amnesty proposals are all about for illegal aliens, and give them a permanent majority in this country. That is the danger. This is their grand strategy.
And they disenfranchise the American people
That's
at
right.
the same time. Those that are legitimate citizens, people that went through the process legitimately, people that waited years to become American citizens. I mean, it's like, why even bother waiting in line anymore? The way that the Democrats are doing it, there's no border there. They have just opened up the border to everybody and everything. And you're right about that. Are you as stunned, and I wonder if the rest of your congressional colleagues are, at how the media has completely turned upside down? I mean, even if their media representatives lean towards the left in the past, we've never seen it like this.
Never.
They're just not holding anyone accountable. I feel as though they're working for Biden and they're working for Facebook. They're working for Twitter. They're not working to tell the truth or to give even a little bit of objective reporting to the American people.
That's exactly right. And we saw it all during the surveillance of our own president, several years ago. We couldn't get the truth out of them. What the heck has happened to the Durham report? Is the guy even real? During that Durham investigation, we thought we were going to find out some things there. I know that's not what you want to talk about, but it's just.
No, I do. I actually do. I actually do want to talk about that. I actually do, because I think we were played. And I think President Trump was played by the Department of Justice. And I have a huge bone to pick with William Barr and with John Durham, because I expected our system of justice to hold people accountable no matter how high they were in the bureaucracy or in government. I believed that. I trusted that. I went on television. I told people, don't worry. Bill Barr's going to do his job. John Durham's going to do his job. I feel now like they used me, they being the people who spoke to me at the DOJ, to send a message to the American people that was just a flat out lie. And I am mad about that. I mean, are you angry? Do you feel like me? Do you feel like everybody's just been played here?
I'm furious, and I have lots of constituents. In fact, not even just constituents, people that follow me and text me or email me and say, why do you allow this to happen? Why can't you do something about this? And I say, I'm one of 435 different members of Congress, and you're imputing a lot of authority to us that even a president of the United States could not get something done about some of these because of the deep state. And I have seen the deep state. It's alive and well. And I say this with tongue in cheek about Durham. Is he even a real person? But what in the world has ever happened about this? What kind of accountability do we hold the FBI, and some of these other agencies that simply just go rogue on us, and we can't seem to get the truth. We don't see accountability. We don't see people that the scales of justice have got to be equal. And man, if we had had the shoe on the other foot, we saw it in Technicolor when Trump, as I mentioned earlier, they accused him of having inhumane and cruel border policies. And my gosh, look what's happening now. And it's all up and down the line.
But it was in its complete flat out lies, right? Because even and carried by a media that basically carried the disinformation from people who were enemies of the president, weaponized. I call them enemies of the state. They were actually enemies of the American people. They didn't want the American people to vote for Trump, so they just worked around it. They went after the president. They're still going after him. They gave false information to the international media, to the local media. They ate it. They pushed it out to the American people and to the rest of the world, even to the point, Congressman. And I mean, it's stunning. You're right. It wasn't just about the border, COVID, the Russia hoax. They said that our president was in the pocket of the Russians. I mean, it was like unheard of stories that if you and I would have written a fiction book about this, people would have laughed us out. They would have said, there's no way. That's never going to happen in America. And it did.
And what's really bad, I mean, it was, we certainly had the policies of President Trump, I think they were so effective. And going back to the border, I mean, we had things that they certainly had their challenge in 2019. We had, we had all these caravans coming in. But those folks that worked in that administration, especially at DHS and the various agencies that had to do with border control and authority under President Trump, President Trump wanted a secure border. And he said, I want results. And they came up with the MPP, the Remain in Mexico. They made a declaration of
that was the migration protection policy. That's the migration protection policy that left people in Mexico until they could apply the right way to enter the United States. And that's a huge policy. Title 42 as well. Now they want all of that gone.
That's right. I was getting ready to mention it. And the declaration, I said disaster, I meant emergency. Building the wall. My goodness, we saw so many incidents of where the wall was doing great work, and they on January the 20th, when Biden suspended all construction, it's incredible that we saw gates that were built in the new wall. Then the gate is sitting there; it's just not operable. And on January the 20th, they suspended everything. All of these materials are sitting there rusting. And we came up to a gate alongside the wall there. I stopped and we talked to a Border Patrol agent who was sitting there about 25 or 30 feet from the gate. I said, what is your duty here? He said, well, since the gate doesn't operate, it takes two of us to man this gate to make sure nobody walks in and out of it. And so they're paying two Border Patrol agents. They've taken them off of their other duties. They've got to sit in a vehicle by this gate that simply, I bet within 24 hours, they could have that gate operating. It was all installed. It just didn't work. They hadn't hooked it up yet to close the dadgum gate. And so
I saw that myself. I was just stunned. Yes. It was just a wide open gate. They've got them in different parts of the border, and all the equipment's just sitting there rotting. And I heard they actually have completed, because it's grandfathered in, it was a contract. They had to pay anyways. They had to pay for all the work anyway. So they basically stopped work, but they paid the guy for the work. It's just everybody else, the contractors, the people that were there daily, actually didn't get to do their work. So the daily employees didn't get paid, but the main contractor got paid for all the material, got paid for everything. Now it's just rotting. It's just rotting. And then they lied, Congressman, about, and I'm going to jump here just really quick, because you sit on the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, if I'm correct. That's and right. I think you serve as the ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Space. And this is, this is a whole new time for us when it comes to space, when it comes to, and I'll deal with the very serious issue of China. And then I'm going to ask you a question about what your thoughts are on the Pentagon's new releases and John Ratcliffe's, the DNI's, former DNI's information that there are things out there that we can't explain, whatever they are, whether they're from another country or from another planet. I'm still concerned either way. But let's talk about China, because I was talking to you about this when we were at the border. The Chinese have become a leader in space technology. It's been very frustrating, I know, for especially for American scientists and engineers. You know, they're working hard to do everything they can to take us up to the top of the food chain. A lot of this stuff is classified. We don't even know, but there's a big battle in space right now, right?
A huge battle in space. And that's been one of the highlights of my congressional tenure for 4 terms now. And that is to be, I represent the largest space facility in the country, in Johnson Space Center there in Houston and Clear Lake. And, we look back over the past year, and what a tough year. I haven't never seen a year like this in my entire life. And it seems like it was nothing but bad news, a pandemic, civil unrest, unemployment, just it seems like one thing piled on the other. Coming off the tail of the best economy we had seen in 50 years, the lowest unemployment rate. Minorities had the lowest unemployment rate in history. We had a narrowing of the gap between the richest and the poorest in our country that we hadn't seen, really, I think it was maybe in history.
It was absolutely incredible, which goes to show you the power of the media and the power of a false narrative. Once it sets out, it was like a devastating, it was a weaponization of the media, weaponization of all of our agencies. I want to play really quick this clip. This is a NASA administrator, sir, and talking about the China space race. I want you to hear this.
Chinese government is the only second nation to successfully land on Mars. They are getting ready and have already publicly announced that they want to send 3 big landers to the South Pole of the moon. And that's where the water is. And we are still a year or 2 away from a much smaller lander going there.
I mean, that's crazy. It's like, I don't know if people really realize what's going on there. Not only are they getting everything they need on the moon, right? And as far as minerals and resources, sending stuff to Mars right now, landers and rovers over there competing against the great Elon Musk, I say, and NASA, but Space Force. But now they're also trying to accumulate space itself, like with their satellites and everything. So we're up against something that could potentially really devastate our nation, because if we don't control that space, satellites, everything that's happening around our planet, we are going to be facing, a China on the rise, and the U.S.'s lead in technology and everything else is going to be so far diminished. It really worries me.
Well, I was getting ready to say some of the only good news we've had over the past year has been in space. We've seen, our own U.S. astronauts launched on U.S. missiles from U.S. soil. That's the first time in 9 or 10 years that has happened. We've been paying the Russians, $70 or $80 million a pop to do that. But now we've got a Space Force, a U.S. Space Force. And the reason we do is because our adversaries, China in particular, has pushed the warfighting domain into space. And so I'm very, very happy to see the United States. We got another branch of the service for the first time since 1947 in the U.S. Space Force. We've got a great cadre of officers and enlisted men and women that are building this new Space Force up. And I happen to be also the co-chairman of the House Space Force Caucus because I've got a connection to space, the civil space program. And so we have our adversaries out there, and China is the biggest one. and they mean to supplant us as the number one country on the globe, and also as the number one spacefaring country. They're going to supplant us if we allow that.
Is the Biden administration at all because I know the Trump administration, this was a huge
Yes, ma'am.
success story for President Trump, and anyone who made fun of it in the beginning did not make fun of it later on when they got the full idea of what Space Force entailed and why it was so important to have this extra branch in our military. Do you think that the Biden administration is taking it as seriously, or because Jen Psaki kind of laughed it off? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe she didn't get the briefing. But.
Well, that you just had our new NASA administrator on, Administrator Nelson, former senator.
Right.
I think he was a good choice. I've already had conversations with him, and quite frankly, I'm looking forward to working with Administrator Nelson. I think he's going to do a good job. I think he is a man of stature with a lot of gravitas. And I don't think that the wokeism is going to push him into doing things that he doesn't feel is right in space.
I got to bring him on the Sara show. I got to bring him on my show.
I think that would be a good idea to have people to hear him, because I was impressed. He's a Democrat. There's no question about it. But I think that this administration, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this administration will keep pushing on. We've got to go back to the moon. We're shooting for 2024. We know the Chinese and the Russians and our adversaries are trying to get there before us. This is really kind of revealing news about these landers that Administrator Nelson just mentioned that in that clip, because there is water there, billions of tons of water ice on the surface of the moon that can be used for fuel, for oxygen to breathe, to grow plants, horticulture. It's something that absolutely we cannot allow ourselves to be beaten there. And the Chinese have every intention of doing that. And let's hope that the Biden administration has a lot more sense in their space program than they have shown with their Green New Deal and getting us back into the Paris Climate Accords, or allowing the Iranians to resume, their nuclear program and getting us back in that thing, and opening our borders up and some of the more foolish things that have been happening, and our economy, getting rid of it was stunning to me, because I've got more petrochemical refining facilities. I'm the epicenter in my district of the energy program, the energy world of America, and the getting rid and in one fell swoop and his executive orders, Biden killed Keystone Pipeline. He's killing the permitting for offshore and onshore fracking on public lands. He has really hurt the energy sector, and we cannot allow that to happen either. So I'm hoping,
right, and all the Americans,
space.
Right, exactly, and all the American people and workers that relied on that Keystone Pipeline, that would relied on the future of the success of the pipeline and the energy sector in the United States. It's not just what happened at that one moment. It's how it's going to affect decades or years to come, especially if these policies don't change. And from your mouth to God's ears on the Space Force and everything else. Okay, before I let you go, I'm going to give you your very last word in a minute, but I need to ask you about the Pentagon's release of information that they're expecting a report at the end of June. I've been hearing from my sources that the report might not be as detailed as some people want, because there's a lot of classified information in a report on the UAPs, the unidentified aerial phenomena, or the UFOs as most people know them. So there have been a lot of pilots, a lot of folks talking about things that they've seen in the sky that they cannot explain, and neither can the Navy or the Air Force. Objects moving 400 to 700 Gs. Maybe no actual propulsion on the object. If this is China or Russia or some other nation's technology, that's got to be super concerning. If this is not theirs and it comes from someplace else, i.e. space, which is maybe why the Chinese are there looking for water, who knows? it's still concerning, right? I mean, this is a big issue. I'm sure you're all interested in it. You're on the committee.
Well, all I can say is I've had conversations with several of my colleagues. In fact, even as late as just a few days ago, when some of the folks that were on our CODEL down there, where you joined us in El Paso, one of them happened to be my good friend and colleague, newly elected to Congress, and that's Mike Garcia, former pilot. And we got to talking about it and just speculating about what it means. Incredibly, I've seen the videos. I have seen the videos, and something is there. There's no question about it. Who it is, what it is real hard to wrap your mind around. But if you have aerodynamics where you can fly from the atmosphere into water and back again, and you can pull a 400 G force, that type of speeds and accelerations, and that really is very concerning. If that is one of our planetary adversaries like China or Russia, we need to be very, very concerned. And then if it's someone extraterrestrial from another world, that is very concerning to me as well. So I'm just hoping.
Yeah, we may be like the ants. We may be like the ants on an anthill to them. I mean, we can't jump into water, up into space, move around 400 Gs. I'm thinking like we can only go about like 7 to 9 Gs. I'm thinking that's what I heard. At least that's what I was told. And I've never flown obviously that fast or been on a jet. Although I'm more than happy to do any jet. I will do that in a minute. I will go up with a pilot in a second and test that theory out. But that is concerning because I really, I love this planet. I love the mysteries of our world and our universe. I've got to believe that we might not be alone, even if it's not super advanced. There might be a bacteria out there. There might be something out there that, but also maybe a highly intelligent being, or beings. It's like, we got to take this seriously. We can't just laugh it off anymore, right?
That is exactly right, because, when a super advanced civilization runs into a lesser advanced civilization, it doesn't always turn out so well for the lesser advanced civilization. And I'm not saying these are extraterrestrials. I don't even know. This could be our own. We have no idea. I have not gotten really any official briefings on this. I've talked with a number of my colleagues, and like I just said, some of them have been aviators. And quite frankly, it leads one to believe that we need to continue to study this, and we need to find out exactly what these things are. And I'm hoping that sometime in the future, one of our agencies might come clean. Or we discover that this is something of one of our adversaries. And if it is, we need to get our research and development in high gear and fast, because that will bode ill for America.
And last and final question, I'm going to leave this up to you, because we've talked about a lot of issues, a lot of things, a lot of issues that have frustrated so many Americans. Do you have any suggestions of what we could do as individuals? A lot of times it's just, we're going to the grocery store, we're picking up our kids from school, we're, trying to tend to our families, but we really do love and care about our country, Congressman. We want to be able to help our congressional members and our neighbors and our nation stay afloat and prosper and move forward. What is it that we need to do? Is it the upcoming elections? Is it just volunteering locally? What can we do?
Absolutely. And, I hear so many people that are so frustrated right now. They say, well, I don't even watch the news anymore. All I do is watch old reruns on television and these types of things. And to drop out is the worst thing. This is what the Democrats and the socialists want us to do. I think we saw a lot of that in the Georgia Senate election. I think that had a lot to do with us losing those 2 seats, and not to just moderate Democrats. We lost those 2 seats to wacko Democrats. These are far left socialist Democrats. And we cannot drop out. We've got to stay engaged. I think it was Thomas Jefferson said, our democracy can only survive, our republic can only survive with an educated a principled, educated, populist voting population. And if we drop out, ignorance is going to kill us. It certainly will. And you can look and see our open borders, our drop in morals. All of these can add up to a disaster for America that's coming on. And I have 17 grandchildren, and I'm telling you, I'm worried. I'm worried about the future. So an educated, moral, principled voting populace is exactly what we need. A real quick story. When Benjamin Franklin walked out of Constitutional Hall after the Constitutional Convention, a lady was standing there and says, "Dr. Franklin, what kind of government did you give us?" He said, a republic if you can keep it. And I think we're being tested right now. We've got to keep this republic. The world is counting on that shining city on a hill that America has been. And our kids, our grandkids, they are counting on a continuation of the American dream and that opportunity. And all of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marine that have sacrificed, like your husband, like Marty, who have sacrificed so much to help us keep those freedoms, they would be so disappointed. The ones that have gone on before us, to think that we just turned over our country without a whimper to the hard left and to the communists and anarchists. We cannot ever let that happen.
Wow. I couldn't even imagine saying that any better, but I got to tell you this, Congressman, I have not stopped fighting. I will continue to fight until they have to drag me down, or I'm going to find a way to get the information out there. I'm not going to stop. And I know that our listeners aren't going to stop. And you are 100% right. Do not give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't uneducate yourselves. Fight for what you believe is true. You can get out there and vote. You can stand up. You can go to your school boards and say, we're not going to put up with this. We are not going to teach critical race theory to our children, for crying out loud. It's our tax dollars, right? We're not going to do the 1619 project. We don't believe in this. We're Americans, and we're going to be proud of our liberty and our exceptionalism. Congressman Babin, you're right. I mean, you're right. We throw in the towel, and they are going to steamroll our nation.
That's right. And let me say one other thing, because I had a great conversation with my oldest son, Leif, who you know, Navy SEAL, and we were talking about people need to run for their school board, run for your city council, run for your county commissioner, run for Congress, run for senator.
Leif, you're awesome.
There you go. And
I
with
mean,
the pandemic, true. And with these kids that have been confined to their house and homes, and having to go to a virtual school, and their parents have seen some of the curriculum. Let me tell you, that's what's making these school board meetings all around this country so hot. People are coming up there. They're outraged about the critical race theories and all the garbage they're trying to shove down our kids' throats and brainwashing them. Run for the school board.
Run for the school board. Run to the teachers. I saw videos out there with teachers yelling at students, treating them that they were dirt just because they didn't want to wear their mask, or because they had a Trump t-shirt on or something. Don't let the left, do not let the radical Marxists, these aren't Democrats, these are radical Marxists, take over our country. And they are doing so by brainwashing our children and brainwashing our school systems. You're 100% right. It starts at home. That's what we can do to fight back. Thank you so much, Congressman Babin. It's so great having you on the show. I hope you come back.
I will, Sarah. God bless you and your family. Okay. Thank you for what you're doing.
I think we all have a lot to think about. I know I do. What am I going to do? What more can I do to help my nation, to help my country that my father fought for, my grandfather fought for, my great-great-grandfather fought for, my mother came here from Cuba, looking for a nation and being welcomed by a nation that believed in liberty and freedom, a nation of laws, a nation of rules, that the balancing scales of justice, that's what we want to protect. If we're willing to fight for our children, if somebody tried to break in your house, right, you would fight for your family. Now, I'm not saying fight like that. What I'm saying is listen to what Congressman Babin said. Get out there, go to your school board meetings, find out what they're teaching your children, find out what's going on your college campuses where your hard-earned dollars are paying for your students on the college campuses. And if you're sending them and you find out they're at a school with a bunch of leftist Marxists, what kind of education are they going to get anyways there? Tell them to get out. Find a school for your kid that's worth the hard-earned dollars that you have made your whole life, right? To see your family succeed and move ahead. Read the paper. Don't just sit on your butt, right? And don't read the New York Times or the the Washington Post. Well, maybe read them, but don't always believe what they're saying. Now, some stories are good and some of them are just complete crap, right? Just all made up. But get out there and educate yourself. Listen to what the congressional members are saying. Maybe go on C-SPAN. Maybe that's what we need to do and just hear them banter back and forth to find out what's going on Capitol Hill. Go to Fox News. I'm on there all the time with Sean Hannity. My reports from the border, my reports out there from wherever I am in America, whether that's Tennessee with farmers or, out in California with Congressman Mike Garcia at Illegal Grows. I promise you what I am getting to you is the truth. I'm just out there talking to people and then I'm bringing it straight to the television, straight to you, right into your homes. I thank you for entrusting me with that, for letting me be in your home. This is about all of us. We're a family, right? You and me and all of us. I mean, we're a family. We're a nation. We should protect one another, love one another, and really, really fight for these beautiful freedoms that we have. Too many people have given too much for us to give up. We cannot give up. And the glass is half full, my friends, until it's not anymore. It's all the way we look at it, right? It's all the way we look at it. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sarah Carter Show. You can get all the links at sarahacarter.com. That's sarahacarter.com, Spotify, Spreaker, wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there on sarahacarter.com, folks, sign up for my email list because that way you won't get shadow banned. We don't want to be shadow banned anymore. We don't want to be canceled. I refuse to allow anyone to cancel me unless it's that person's individual choice. But as far as like these fascist companies, we will find a way to stop this. This is America. We've got ways of doing things. We've got systems in our government that protect us and that protect you and that protect our children. But the most important thing we have is each other and our ability to stand tall and to be proud and to realize that we come from the greatest nation on earth. And this beautiful country, she is worth fighting for. Thank you so much, and God bless. Today, I'm joined by Rebecca Weber, the CEO of the Association for Mature American Citizens. It's also known as AMAC. Can you share a little bit with the audience about your father, Dan Weber, and how he founded AMAC and why?
My father formed AMAC after he recognized that the AARP really was not representing his values, and those values were really faith, family, and freedom. And my father believed in America's greatness. He believed that there was what he described as a cultural shift occurring in our country. He thought that the very, very foundation, the Constitution, was being disregarded. And we saw that the power of government was growing and individual freedoms were diminishing, were being threatened. And to get more specific was in 2006 when he said to me that he was canceling his AARP membership. And I said to my father, why would you do that? And he said, well, they've just named Harry Belafonte Man of the Year. And he went on to say that Harry Belafonte had commented to Hugo Chavez saying that George W. Bush was the greatest terrorist threat in America. And my father said something is wrong with that. So he saw the AARP make this sharp left turn. And that was when he said, let's form AMAC. And I said, let's do it.
Rebecca, thanks so much for being with me today. I'm honored to have you and AMAC as a sponsor for the Sarah Carter Show. For more information, folks, visit amac.us/Carter.